Hello everyone, and welcome to Do Art. This is a new area within the channel. I've been working on this project for a little too long. A lot of things happened during this specific project. I am going to let you guys know right now, this is a big disclaimer. I am not a professional sculptor at all. This is literally my second project. My first one I did in school, so technically this is my very first outside of school project. So we're gonna call this the first project. And we're going to be doing the starter Pokemon from Pokemon Legends Arceus that came out like no, it wasn't last year. Yeah, I think it was last year or the year before. I don't remember. I'll put it on screen when it was. And yeah, so we're gonna get started. Alright, so the first thing we're gonna need is lots and lots of clay for our first Pokemon, who is Arceus. I'm going to be doing his little teeny nose, digging out a little crevices for his eye sockets. They actually came out really good, I have to say. And then we're gonna be working on his mouth. That, however, didn't come out so great. Yeah. And then I made tiny triangles for his little tiny ears, and then of course squished them and prodded them and stuff to make them look cute. Here we're making the body to make sure that the head doesn't, is not too big. Anyway, so here's his little tiny arms, his little nubbies. I have to say Arceus was pretty easy to do. Except for his mouth and his feet. Most of his feet I did off screen, so yeah, they took a bit. And once these are fit pretty good, it's off to the first bake. And after the first bake, we're gonna put his teeth in, and I get to play dentist with glue. That's probably not the best thing, just saying, you don't want glue in your mouth, but anyway. So here we're gonna work on his little tiny frills that are around his neck. We have to make quite a few of them. So basically they're just little round discs that I squished. So we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Alright, all done. We can put his head on. It rests really nicely, which is great. Next part I'm working on is his tail. This one was actually pretty easy to do. I really enjoyed doing his tail. And of course you gotta attach it and then make a little tiny curve. And he is ready for baking. Also, while we're gonna bake him, I'm gonna start the shell. I cut it out and then rolled out a little tiny itty bitty wormy dealy, and we're going to squish them together, pull it apart until it's ready to go. I thought about putting it on his belly, but then I was like, nah, I think I'd much rather have him holding it. The primer is finished, and now we're going to paint his ears, feet, and tail blue, a dark blue specifically. Those are the only parts that have the dark blue. And of course, we're painting the shell yellow with the brown for his nose and also the brown for the stripes on the shell. Off screen, because I didn't see it, I painted his eyes black and gave him little tiny freckles. The rest of his body is basically white, except for this part. This is a light blue. And here's me putting his little white dots into the black of his eyes. He came out so cute. Hi. Oh, and I also off screen did his mouth red. That's him finished. All we have to do now is glue him together. We got his head and his shell, and he's basically done. So we can move on to the next Pokemon, who will be Rowlet. He's basically a ball, so I got some aluminum foil, wrapped it up like a dumpling, and we've got ourselves a ball. Now, I was struggling very much with the wings, so I eventually just got tracing paper, drew on it, and then actually just kind of press in on the clay with the drawing. And here you can see that the wings came out pretty good. Now you just gotta attach one wing to one side and then the wing to the other side, and it basically turned into a candy wrapper. I mean, candy. Next, I'm working on the feet. Basically, it just turned into the letter Y. The back of the foot did come out a bit long, and here's me putting on the feet and realized that he's too round, so I added a bunch of extra clay to the bottom. Now I'm working on his little tiny bow that goes into the front of him. This actually took me quite a bit, but it did come out pretty nicely. So underneath Rowlet, he has these little like feather frills. I'm gonna use frills a lot, I guess. It's underneath his wings. When his arms are down, they're hidden. But here's me putting them on because you do see them and when his wings are up. And I actually think they came out pretty cool. Now, here's his tail, because I mean, he's a bird, he's got to have his tail, obviously. And then we're going to curl it up a bit because I made it too long, but I thought he'd have a long tail. And then just right above his tail, he's got these little tiny feather frills in the back. You won't see it too much, but it is there, so I thought I'd just put them in. And now let's put him together. We're starting with his little bow. And now I'm making kind of a big, thick, wormy dealy, cutting it in half. And this is going to be his nose. I did make it a little too big at first, obviously, because it's like, dude, he's got a huge beak nose. I shortened it quite a bit. And I did start working on his eyes. You can see me working more on the eye sockets here. And after that, he's ready for a beak. And then we get to glue him together. And he's pretty much done at this point. So we're gonna put some primer on him and we're gonna get started painting. Now, unfortunately, the recording didn't work because my camera sort of died at this point. So I had to get a new camera and do some other things. But, so his main body wings is this khaki color, and his feet, his nose, are this darker khaki color, which you see me painting right here. Now, this next color is green. This green was so difficult to get. Basically, it goes on his tail, his bow, and then the inside of his wings. When his wings are down, you don't really notice. But they have these, they follow the feathers, but they don't go all the way to the edge where his body connects. Off screen, once it was dry, I put the brown khaki back against where it was supposed to be. So I didn't do it on screen, but there you go. And here we're doing the blacks of his eyes, which came out really good. I was kind of afraid that I was gonna ruin everything by doing that. And then we got the little tiny white dots of his eyes. And that's basically Rowlet. So we can move on to the final Pokemon, who is Cyndaquil. Now, Cyndaquil and I have been having issues. This is actually my third attempt at making Cyndaquil. She's not hard, or not hard to make. Basically, it's like a little sausage with more little sausages for like arms and legs. This was really, really hard, and I don't know why. So now I'm just putting on the arms. The legs are actually going to come off because I didn't like them either. Now I'm working on the nose. This is like my third or fourth attempt on the nose, and still it wasn't quite right. But I worked at it, add a little bit more clay, and the nose came out pretty good. So I was happy with it, and we're gonna move on to the legs. I finally, after much pinching and pulling and prodding, finally got the legs to where I was happy. Now, her little toenail, I guess, I originally opted for baking and then pushing them into the clay, but it didn't work. So basically, I made little tiny ones, put them at the end, and baked it. Unfortunately, they kind of broke, but that's how it is. So on to painting. Now, I got the primer done, and this was very tricky because Cyndaquil's blue only goes certain part, and then the rest of her is a kind of this creamy color, which is what I went for, not straight white. Well, I kind of penciled it in, so I had some idea to follow, and that's basically what I did, is I painted in the lines. And then working on the back, it got a little bit too messy, so I just opted to have kind of a thicker blue section than originally intended, but that's okay. Unfortunately, the blue wasn't as thick as I would have liked, so I had to do several passes. I think I ended up doing like 3 coats total for the blue, which took a while. Now, once the blue finally finished, I could put the red little circles on her back. I did not make fire, I'm sorry. But this took like 5 or 6 coats of putting this red on because it doesn't go on blue very well. So after several attempts, we ended up with something pretty nice. And Cyndaquil is basically done. So now we get to talk about the base. I did not have a base in mind when I first started this. All I did was start with Oshawott, Rowlet, and then Cyndaquil. And I was like, I haven't the foggiest idea what I want to do for the base. None. No clue whatsoever. Their poses aren't the greatest because I didn't know. So I eventually came up with an idea to do a tree. This tree, the one I'm working on now, is not my first tree. It was actually much, much taller, and then realized it won't fit in the oven to bake. So I decided to do something a little smaller, obviously. So right now I'm just adding the main trunk and then smoothing it all together. I'm not trying to make a super amazing tree here. It's a Pokemon tree, and that's it. So now I'm just adding the kind of the limbs. My camera, the new one that I got during this project, only records like about 5 minutes worth, and then it just turns itself off. I don't know why. So there's a lot of random cuts and stuff and things that just disappear. So right now I'm working on building up the base because it was a little top heavy and actually fell over. I'm working on just trying to make it kind of smooth. I'm not making like actual ridges within the trunk itself. No, not at all. I mean, I kind of want to make it look like a tree, but at the same time, I'm not gonna go out and put like the lines or the texture, because, you know, a Pokemon tree, we don't know what they look like in real life. They could be completely smooth or not. I don't know. So that's what I end up doing. Just kind of build it up, make it look nice-ish, and kind of smooth, but have some sort of texture to the tree itself. Now we're gonna move on to painting. This base is just gonna be green. That's it. That's basically all I'm gonna do with it, is make green grass. Obviously paint the whole thing in, get the corners. Don't forget the corners. I almost did forget the corners, by the way. And then I am now painting up the tree I ended up kind of using the khaki color from Rowlet. Almost. I was having difficulty with that color and I had a lot of it. So I just ended up using that to paint the tree. Now the fun part. We are going to put it all together. I got some foliage and gonna glue it on. I originally used regular tacky glue, but it didn't work so well, so I ended up using a glue gun. Now I left this in because two of the roots from the base of the tree did break. One of them I hid with the bush that was the first one. This one I decided to keep because I really liked the angle of it, and I just covered it with foliage to hide the crack, you know? Now I'm just adding the foliage to the tops of the tree and along the side of the tree. Alright, time to work on putting down Cyndaquil. I find it funny that I put the hardest one I had to work on first because I was like, eh. Now, I didn't really have a position in mind, so I ended up making this a berry tree and giving them berries everywhere. So Cyndaquil is off eating a bunch of berries by herself, and Oshawott and Rowlet are going to be surrounded by a pile of berries. I did add some greenery behind Oshawott because he was having a little bit of a hard time standing. So here's me putting on all the berries that I actually made off screen. It was fun painting them because my fingers had turned that color, and oh man, I got that blue everywhere. It was a little insane. Now I'm adding a few extra berries to the tree to make it orange berry. I kind of did attempt at making them actual orange berries, but with marker and stuff, but it didn't work. So I'm like, I'll just leave them blue. Here is Rowlet getting put down, and that's it. So I think it's time to go on to the glamour shots. It is hard to believe that this project is done. I have been working on this project since January of last year. The move really just dampened this whole project, and it was kind of a struggle to start back up, but when I did, it was fun. But then winter hit and we had no heater, so it was really hard to work on the project. And I would like to give a special shout out to GlitchxCity, who is the one who said I could use her music. I highly recommend you go see her and go listen to her music because it is great. I also want to get a shout out to my Patreons. I couldn't have done this without them. They've been a great help and a great support during this time. And if you want to become a Patreon, you totally can. There's a link in the description. And you get to see what project I'm working on, and you get to see the whole thing early. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. And as always, keep on smiling.